everybody. Good morning, Mr. Vigneshwar. It's a pleasure to have amongst us Mr. Vigneshwar, who is the of NITE Institute of Technology. Right. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Mr. Vigneshwar on behalf of the institution, the management, the principal, the staff, and all the people who are associated with the Indian Institution, Innovation Institution Cell, PESCE in India. I'd like to just share a brief bio of Mr. Vigneshwar, who is going to talk on today's topic of design thinking over impact lecture series. I wholeheartedly welcome Mr. Vigneshwar for this webinar session. I also welcome all the key players of Innovation Cell, coordinators, staff, faculty members, and the students of PESCE. To start with, let me just share a brief bio of Mr. Vigneshwar Pujar. As I told you earlier, he is the alumnus of NITE Institution of Technology, and he holds a bachelor degree in electronics and communication. Right. To talk about his work experience, he has worked as a senior UX designer with TechGenie Inc. Further, he has worked as an interaction designer. Further, he has worked as a senior UX designer with ADP. Right. Further, he has worked as head of design, UX mentor with Design Board. Right. Currently, he has his own institution or organization of his own, like Arivu.com, where he has the position of Chief Executive Officer. He has an immense bio, which really motivates our young budding engineers around us. I wholeheartedly welcome Mr. Vigneshwar Pujar. Sir, the floor is open to you. You can take over. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Dr. Kiran. So I think I have close to 1.5 hours or 1 hour 15 minutes of time, right?
That's right. That's right. Cool. You can go ahead with it.
Cool. So guys and girls, what I would request you guys is whenever you have a question on your mind, drop it in the chat message there, which has been kind of initiated by Dr. Kiran Kumar. I'll pick up the questions at the end of the session. But whatever comes to your mind, keep jotting down your thoughts and putting those questions over there, because that kind of gives me a sense on what has been absorbed by you guys and what has kind of slightly bounced off from your head. Does that sound good? Okay, I'll take that as an S. In case if people want to have a different way of interacting, do let me know and we can kind of modify it. Cool. Sure then, let me start the thing. Cool. Yeah. So let us start understanding this term or this whole concept of design thinking, right? Two different kind of activities for our brain to kind of consume. Design, which is more of a creative space, thinking, which is more of an analytical thing. And when both of those kind of met, we had this beautiful, beautiful process called design thinking, which in short, if I have to say, it's using the creative mindset to solve complex human problems, right? And why do engineers need to understand this is because when you step into your career, when you get into your corporate jobs or you start on your own, you'll be dealing with a lot of technical challenges, as well as you will have to deal with a lot of creative challenges, because you would be building something new for the world. What hasn't been conceived earlier, what hasn't been conceptualized earlier, you would be expected to do that, right? Design thinking as a framework or as a toolkit helps you understand the user being someone who is going to use your application or product, what you will engineer it on, challenge the assumptions, challenge the status quo, kind of question why things have been done like this before, and then see if there's a better way to do that. redefine problems in an attempt to identify alternative strategies, right? There is this conventional thinking which will lead you to point A to point B. The design thinking will help you explore if there are other alternative suggestions, say B1, B2, B3, or say XYZ solution to the same thing, instead of just moving from point A to point B. That might not be instantly apparent. The solutions which are kind of not self-evident, which are not the common sense kind of thing, and then if you apply a design thinking method to it, you might come up with slightly alternative way of figuring out what is more interesting way of solving the same problem, right? Design thinking is not just thinking part of it. There is a whole process to it, and I'll take you through all those steps today, right? So design thinking has 6 steps. First one is empathizing. Empathizing is basically connecting with your audience for whom you are going to build the product. The second one is defining. Defining is basically identifying the problems your audience has, and then kind of giving a very formal way of representing those problems so that you are solving the right problems, right? Engineering helps you to solve the problem rightly. Design thinking helps you identify the right problems to be solved. And once you have identified the problems, we have a toolkit to ideate or come up with solutions for those problems. And then once we have those solutions or concepts or the ideas, then we create a prototype and test it with the users to figure out if what we have ideated, does it really solve the problems of the user. And then once it is tested, then we go into implementation, right? Most of you might have thought that product engineering or product development is just about implementation. You have the solutions given to you and you will have to build something out of it, which isn't the best way to do things, because once you build it, you wouldn't know if the users are going to like it, if it is going to solve the problem. None of those insights are there, and you will build something in with a blindness to the context, and then the product will sink. So instead of that, you adopt a design thinking methodology where you start with understanding your users, you define their problems, you ideate the solutions for those problems, you create a prototype, test with the user, and only then you get into the final building of the product. Am I clear till now? Manohar is not able to hear me. Do others have the same problem?
Voice is audible.
Okay. Harini and everyone else, Dr. Kiran, am I audible?
Yes, Vigneshwar, you're audible. I request Manohar to check with the internet connectivity. If there is something down,
Yes, sir,
they can check on it.
No worries, no worries. Cool. I hope I was kind of I was able to convey what design thinking is. Now we will dive deeper into each step of design thinking and the different methods used for each of the steps. The first step is empathize, right? Empathize is primarily a way where you connect with another human being, right? Even out of design thinking, out of the corporate world, when someone is undergoing a stress or a problem or has a pain, if you are able to connect to their pain without having the pain by yourself, then you are empathizing with them. You are not sympathizing, you are not having pity for them, but you are able to understand what's going in their life and you can connect with them, right? So empathize is basically when you connect with people at a very deep level. Right now, how do you do it in a enterprise setup or a corporate setup where you do not know who the other person is, right? Because the program which you are building or the the products you are building are going to be used by the people who you will never meet in real life, right? Right. The other stuff, empathizing with your classmate is much easier because you have seen that person, you have been with that person. But empathizing with someone who is out of your world and still build something for them requires a slightly more structured way of doing it, right? In the design thinking process, we call it as 3 different ways of doing it. You observe them, you understand their environment. Are they going to use it in outdoors? Are they going to use it in indoors? Are they going to use it as a part of their job, or are they going to use it as part of their leisure? who would be around them when they are using that app, who would be the person they would interact with when they have that app, right? All those things kind of are very important. You observe, and when you are observing, the most important aspect is do not judge the people, right? Do not say they are lazy, do not say that they are workaholic, nothing like that. You just observe and take them for what they are without kind of getting into value judgment. The second thing is that you engage with them, you talk to them, you send them questions, you interview them, and you do that. The observation is more of a silent observation, engagement is slightly more active. The third way of empathizing with the person would be uh, getting into their shoe, or you kind of get immersed into their work life, right? If you are designing something for a Uber driver, the best way to understand their problem is to become a Uber driver for a week or two. You get it, right? You spend time with those people, you kind of play that role, and then things kind of fall much into the realities of their lives than what assumptions you had in your mind. Right now, how do we do that? We will study in next few minutes. There's few tools for empathizing. There are plenty of them, but I'll just take you guys through 6 of them, and then we will take a pause, and then I'll get into the next phase. The very first tool which you can use is a beginner's mindset. When we say beginner's mindset, it's basically you start with a blank canvas. You forget all your assumptions and personal beliefs, right? If I were to design a Uber experience again, Uber cab, which most of you would be aware of, heard of, or let's take something much simpler, like a website for PESCE Mandya, right? Now, if you had to design a website for PESCE Mandya, you would have a lot of assumption and personal beliefs that your college is of certain visibility, it has certain lecturers, and there are certain things which are very interesting in your college and all those things. But then the person who is going to visit PESCE college website would be probably someone who has just written their CT and is 18 or 17 years of age, and who doesn't understand a lot of things which you have learned over last 3-4 years, right? So start with the beginner's mindset and keep all your personal beliefs, experiences aside. Take away the stereotypes, which you might now think that, okay, 17-year, 18-year person is of certain thing, they are busy with Instagram, they do not have serious. Take that all outside, right? All those stereotypes and misconceptions, take it out. Start with a mindset which puts all your biases. Biases are primarily your personal beliefs which makes you think in certain way, and start with a fresh set of eyes. Few things you should do. Do not judge whoever your user is. That's what they are. We do not have any control or moral obligation to correct them. Let them be what they are, and we build things for them. Question everything. Question why would someone do what they are doing. Be really curious with that. Really curious in the sense. Try to understand why they would do what they want to do, and appreciate their expectation, appreciate their needs, appreciate their wants, and truly kind of be a champion for your user. Find patterns. You will figure out that when you are doing the research on your users, there are certain patterns which happen day in, day out, and then try to build things around that, and listen without thinking how you are going to respond. So basically, do not judge, right? Like when someone is telling you that they want to check if PS college is better than some other college, do not get into a trigger movement to say that no, you do not know that our college is much better than. You just listen to them, because they are still not aligned to any college. They are doing the college hunting and trying to figure out how their career will span and all those things, right? So when you listen, do not kind of create an auto response in your mind, right? Just listen to them, and then a lot of things will get clearer in your mind. So that's primarily one thing. How do you empathize with someone? Start with a beginner's mindset. Be a clean slate. Let them be whatever let them have the freedom to be what they genuinely are, and you just become a hearing piece to them. Okay, I'll move to the next toolkit. If someone has a question, please drop a message. Yeah, the next toolkit to understand people is ask 5 whys. We kind of call it as begin with a why, right? So let's again get back to that example of someone looking into PS College Mandia's website, right? You ask them the first, why are you looking into our website? And they say that I am trying to compare which colleges offer better placements. Then you ask them the second question, why do you think placements, why are you looking for placement assistance in this college websites? Then they say that it's because we think the colleges which have better placements are the colleges which will be aligned to our future. Then you test that assumption, right? Ask, why do you think that is true? And then they will say that we are taking a lot of personal loans, student loans, we have to tell to our parents and my relatives that this is a good college, so we have to give this numbers and all. Then you ask one more thing. And then finally you figure out that someone who's visiting your website is primarily visiting it to make sure that the decision they are taking about their selection of college is not a wrong decision, right? They might say they are looking for placement assistance, but primarily what they are looking is that they do not want to commit to a college without knowing about the college. And then you wouldn't just design for the placement assistance page in your website, but you will design for completely new experience, which kind of puts that person at ease if he has to opt for your college. Make sense? Right? At the top level, you just feel that they need to understand the number of people who are getting placed. But when you kind of drill down, you realize that they are trying to be sure that the decision they are taking is not a wrong decision, and anything you can give to them as a evidence that their decision is not a wrong one kind of puts everything into place. So maybe more than number of people getting placed, they would be happy to understand that there is a innovation cell in a PS college which kind of has created X number of entrepreneurs, and now they are happy that okay, there's more to this college than any other college which just creates people who are job seekers, right? So asking those 5 whys are important, right? And at any point of time, you are not challenging the users, but you are just listening to them with a very open-ended mind, right? Talk about the process and don't talk about the people. And anything which kind of leads to this lame-ended excuses that I am looking for a college because my friend told me to, or like I didn't have any other thing to do, so I'm looking for. Just avoid those things. This person is greedy, this person is lazy, this person is jealous. Those are not the root causes you are looking for. You are looking for the genuine things which has provoked someone to figure out what is there on your college website. Cool? Okay, I'll take it as a yes, and I'll move to the next part. Right? The another tool which I frequently use is called as empathy map. So it primarily puts user at the center of the chart, and you kind of jot on what the user is thinking, what they are feeling, what do they do, and what do they say. Right? What people say and what people do are two different things. What people think and what people say are also different. Right? So all these 4 quadrants have a different level of insights on which you can build, right? So when let's again get back to this 12th grader who is looking into PS College's website, what he's saying something to his parents around or his peers around, this college looks good campus, a lot of space, etc. But what he's thinking that would my friends get into the same college? Would this college have a lot of peer pressure? Is it too posh? Is it too not posh? Whatever those things are, that's what he's thinking about. What is he feeling? He's feeling, how far is it from my home? Would I be getting homesick or those kind of things? But what he does is he's primarily looking for different pages to see if there are more details which he can tap into, right? So this helps you structurally map what the user is going to when they would check your website, and then you can have those solutions little later in your thing. So this is how empathy map looks template wise, and this is how it looks when you have all those thoughts kind of jotted on it. If someone is buying a TV, they kind of start with while they are looking for two different TV sets and they are unable to figure out which one is better. They always feel that they might lose on some hardware specification, which would later cost them, and they get confused with all those short forms and those things. And they have this sense that they are buying it once and they want it to be the best they can afford at that point of time. What are they feeling? They are feeling afraid. They are afraid, but at the same time, they are excited that they're buying something. They are anxious that they might buy something wrong. Right? All those feelings are kind of brewed in their mind. What do? They check the websites, they do more research, they make small decisions. So instead of saying I'll buy X TV versus Y TV, say that I'll buy a TV which has X dimension and has Y capabilities, right? And then they look for something. They check with their friends, they compare products online, they check in the store. That's what they do. What do they say? They say things which are very vague to what they are thinking, right? Where should I start? It's not what they are bothered about, but that's what they say. They ask for others, what do you think? But what they are primarily trying to say is that, do you think the way I'm thinking, right? So all this emotion, thoughts, actions, everything kind of gets into the place before they make a final decision to buy a TV, right? So something similar would happen for someone who is browsing your website to make that decision whether they have to choose PS Mandya or they have to choose another college. Right. Another way of empathizing is actually talking to the user, which kind of has a lot of other things we say. You speak to them, you understand why they are doing it. You never say usually when asking a question, you just let them be very open about what they do. And when they are telling their stories, look for inconsistencies. Do not tell them upfront that they are telling a story. Let them kind of open up their mind, say their narration. Pay attention to their non-verbal cues, basically their body language. And if there is a pause or a silence, it's basically they are trying to reset their mind and begin again. So leave it there. And ask questions neutrally. Do not suggest them answers. Don't give them a close-ended question like, would you choose this college or that college? Ask open-ended questions which are like, what do you look for when you're looking for a college, right? So don't give a multiple choice answers to them. Are you guys with me till now? Or is it kind of bouncing?
We are following.
Good. Right then. The last kind of empathize activity is body storming, which is basically you kind of do a role play of what your users would be doing, right? So you kind of say that, okay, I don't have access to this 18-year guy who is looking to look for a college, but let me kind of put myself into a space where I would simulate the situations which the person is going through, right? Which primarily starts with thoughts like, okay, this college guy would not be 12th guy would not be browsing the website from a hostel. He would be doing it either from his parents' phone or internet at his home, or maybe a cyber cafe, right? Now cyber cafes are slightly off. During my days they were like the places we used to go to. So you would realize that that person might not have the best of the internet, because you would not search it from a PS Mandya college hostel, but you would kind of drive 30 kilometers away to a Pandavpura or something like that and check what happens. And then you realize maybe a lot of images which were loading wonderfully on your hostel Wi-Fi are not loading there. Right? Then you kind of think like, okay, we need to optimize it for something else. Right? So you practically put yourself into the person's shoe, and then you start empathizing with them. Right? It would also mean that, okay, he's an 18-year guy and he would not do it by himself. He would do it with a set of friends. Then you call your friends and then kind of simulate that what's the chai ka dukan atmosphere where people are trying to figure out which colleges are good, which colleges have been gone, and you would realize they might never do a Google search for PS Mandya, but just before they have to choose the seat, they would someone in their friends circle would have shared them a link via WhatsApp, right? So you will realize that the probability of them opening the site on a mobile screen is much higher than them opening it on a desktop, right? So all these things kind of gives you much more context of what the user is going through. Right. This is another favorite tool of mine. Now that you have figured out everything what is going in the user's life, you create a journey map or a visual representation of the process the person is going through. Engineers are great at creating graphs, the x-axis, y-axis, hyperbolas, parabolas, and all, right? These are another set of journey maps, but not with anything technical, but about the people's thought and what they go through. Right. Let me show you a template. So on the x-axis, you will have the phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, which could be in the case of someone opening the PS Monday website, the phase 1 would be discovery. What would trigger him to open the website? Phase 2 would be him looking through the content. Phase 3 would be an action that he wants to create a inquiry or visit the college or have a fee structure download or a brochure download. The fourth would be him spreading the word about PS College Mandia to his peers, right? So you define it into 4 phases. Then in phase 1, what does he do? He searches it on Google, receives a link from someone, etc. Phase 2, he's looking for certain content, etc. Phase 3 would be he performs that action. He clicks on request for a brochure thing. And phase 4, he shares it with his friends on WhatsApp groups, etc. Right? So this would be the 4 phases and the action. And below each action, then you write what is he going through in his mind at that point of time. Right? When he's looking for, in the discovery phase, he's not very confident about your college, etc. But when he is requesting a brochure, that shows that he is now genuinely interested in your college. But the moment he's sharing it with his friends, that means that he has been, he's impressed or he's keenly interested in engaging with the brand at that point of time, right? So this would be the user's thought at different point of time. And with that, you then map what are the opportunities as a designer or as a problem solver you have to address or engage with the user with their thoughts. Make sense? Super. Right. So we are through our first phase, which is ideate. We are getting to the second phase of design thinking called define. Right. So whatever you have observed from your users during your empathize stage, you are now synthesizing it to a problem solution framework. Right. So the primary part of definition is not to come to a solution, but to articulate your problem in a right way. Right? If you have defined your problem in a right way, you can create the most suited solution for your problem statement. Cool. So that's why we have a very structured way of define stage in design thinking. Few of the tools, point of view, how might we, why, how, ladder, and powers of 10. I'll take you through each of them. Okay. Very first important thing is that you will have to define who your user is, what their need is, and what insight do you have. Right? The 17-year-old kid wants to find out the best college for him because he is anxious about the decision might impact in their career throughout their life. Right? So that would be your point of view definition. Now I have given you a epic level or a very top level problem statement, but then there are smaller or the sub stories point of view also, which you will have to define. The 18-year-old person is anxious and that's why he's coming to website is a top level thing. But then you say the 18-year person would also want to figure out how far the college is from the Mandya railway station or the Mandya thing, or things like he would want to understand what is the intake and what was the last year's cutoff rank and all those stuff, right? So then you articulate everything in a very, very specific way. This is the user, this is her need or his need, and this is the reason why they have that need, right? That is called as a user story writing from a point of view of the user and not from the point of view of the person designing it. That's one method of definition. The second thing is that you use how might we questions. So we have been trained in the Indian education system in a way where things start like this is the only way to solve the problem, right? You have a problem and you have a single answer to that, but in real world the answers ask multiple for a single problem. So from the perspective of how can we move to the perspective of how might we, right? Ensuring that there are a lot of things which can happen, and then picking one solution from a set of different things, right? So to get into that phase, we have to ensure that problem has been defined in a way which is flexible enough to accommodate a lot of things, right? So you do not say things like redesign the ground experience at local international airport. So you will be like, okay, we will make things better. But you are now putting point of view that there is someone who has 3 kids and they are acting crazy, and you have to keep them engaged so that not only the mother of the kids but also the other passengers are not affected. Gives you a real context of that. Now you are taking a how might we approach to solve them, and not get into like we should design a airport in absence of thinking of the users, right? So the answers would be for that when epic level thing, how might we keep the people the kids engaged. We are writing a lot of different possibilities, right? Let me just keep the screen for a second, go through it instead of me kind of reading everything. Cool. Right. So when we started with how might we kind of got things like how might we make the airport like a spa, like a playground, right? Which no one would have thought of earlier. Or things like how might we separate the kids from fellow passenger, which would have been our uh, taught on the very first thing, right? So how might we are primarily that how can you amplify the good in the current thing? How can you remove the bad? How can you explore the exact opposite of it? Instead of making the wait the most irritating, can we make it most exciting? Question and assumption. We are assuming that the wait time is very much required. Now, can we do away with it via digital intervention? Right. So there are a lot of things which you can pick up and start looking at the same problem from multiple different point of view. Right. So that's the primary thing which how might we tool kind of helps you to look for solutions which were earlier not even possible in your mind. Right. The third way of doing it is a why how ladder. Right. You start with a set of needs the user has at the bottom of a paper or bottom of your PowerPoint. Just above that, you put why, like you are saying that someone wants to get a location of your college, and above that you put why for that, and then you ask why again because they are trying to do that, and then you say that okay, this is what the user needs for this reason, and this is how we are going to solve it, right? So we might realize that giving a Google map might look as a fancy idea, but for someone who needs it for a postal address to share their documents, that might not be useful because people don't use Google Map. People can't fetch the address of a college from Google Map, right? So you structure your thoughts. This is the username. This is why they need it, and this is how we are going to solve for it, right? So that would be the why how ladder. So now we are done with two phases of design thinking. The first one was empathize, understanding your user. The second was second one was articulating their problems in a way which is much more structured. We called it as define stage. The third step in design thinking is ideation, right? With ideate is basically finding to solve the problems in a way which people would not have anticipated, right? So there are a lot of tools for ideation framework, but I'll just take you through a few of them today. So it's basically a stage where you move from problem space to the solution space. A few of the tools which I'll take you through today would be brainwright, challenge assumptions, mind map, and power of 10. So the brainwright is simple thing. You do not solve the problem by yourself, but you take a set of people, and each of you write your ideas on a piece of paper, and then you pass it to the other person, and the other person has to elaborate on the first person's idea, and so forth, right? So in few minutes each of them would have collaborated to come up with a set of solutions which a single individual would not have been able to do that, right? So let's assume that you were able to do, yeah, let's assume that you were to do a college website, and the first person says that the college website should have the fest photos. Fest is something you people do, right? The tech fest, the cultural fest, right? So someone would say that's the idea, and then someone else would have said the placement is idea. The third person would have said that would say the sports and facilities is what we have to highlight. Right now, after 15 minutes, the sheets would be passed to the second person. So the first person who had said that sports is the idea now has to elaborate on how the culture fest can be shown to amplify the things. Guys, are you able to hear me, or is there a background noise?
No, it's clear.
It's clear. Thank you.
You're audible.
Thank you. Right. So now this becomes a group activity where each of you would help someone else elaborate on their ideas. Cool. The next activity is toolkit for ideation is challenge assumption. Make a list of assumption and then start uh, checking each of them, right? So maybe you will realize when you have to create that website for your college students, college aspirants, you will realize that there were a lot of assumption even in your mind that someone will come to Google, type in PS Mandya, find a thing and do that. But then you will realize when you start questioning that why would someone check it on Google, you would realize that maybe there's a good chance that they would not check it in on Google, but they would check it on say Instagram or something where they're looking for, there would be some new startup app which is about college comparison and all, and that's the place from where they are getting into it. Then you would start realizing that okay, the whole journey of the person is now starting where they're already aware of the college and they are not looking from a list of colleges, right? So you challenge all those assumptions which then would help you see things from a new way. A great example of this was iPhone. If you get a chance to check the video of Steve Jobs launching iPhone on the YouTube. So he starts saying that there was a assumption till the moment iPhone was invented that the keyboard of mobiles should be a hard one. It should be a part of the mobile. And he said that the mobiles are very small devices, and if you're giving one third or one half of the space to a keyboard which is not required for 1/8 of the time, why do we need to have the keyboard? And then he built it, right? So challenge those assumptions, whatever you think has been brought into the system because of the legacy, challenge those things. One wonderful way to kind of put all your mind in, dump into a single document is called mind mapping. I'll show it to you, right? So it's basically you write a problem, then you write the solution, then you write another problem, you write the solution kind of stuff. So this is how it looks like. You put the user at the center of the things and then see what are the probable solutions you can give to them, and how to, if they have the if else path, if I have to use the computer science analogy, right? If this happens, this is what they do. If that happens, this is what they do. And then you have a complete structure of what might be going into the user's mind. Cool. The another one is power of 10, or what people also say as change your lenses, right? Say for the example of someone looking into the college website, there are three different levels of engagement that person might have. That first, they are looking it for someone they know and they just want to get information, in the sense they know their friend got into that college, and that's why they just want to check if this person has got into a good college or not. The second would be the person who is looking it for someone uh, who they care about, like a parent looking it for their kids, or a sister looking for a brother, kind of thing, right? So they are not going to enroll themselves, but they are going to enroll someone they really care about. The third set of person is who is doing it for themselves, right? Now you have three different uh, skin in the game kind of what's say variable there, right? So the person who's looking to enroll for himself is very much committed to understanding what are the pros and cons. Someone who is looking at just to check if this is a cool college or not might not be there, right? Then you design for all these three things. So we the power of 10 again comes from a mathematical thing, the indices thing, right? So 2 power 10, what is their commitment? 2 power 100, what is their commitment? 2 power 1000, what is their commitment? Changes drastically, right? So the same thing, if someone is
ಈ ಕಾಕಿ ಬಿಸಿಲಿದ್ರೆ ರೌಡಿ ಇದನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಪ್ಪ ಆ ರೌಡಿ ಕಣೋ ಮಹಾ ರೌಡಿ.
cool. Let me get back to the presentation. Cool. So yeah, primarily if someone is looking to buy a bubble gum, the way they look at thing is more of convenience and what's say discounts per se. Someone looking for TV would want some other features, but someone looking for a house would want to visit the house before making that decision, right? So how does each of that change with respect to your user is something you should be aware of. So we are done with 3 steps of design thinking: empathize, define, ideate. The 4th step is prototype. Prototype is simply like you build a small, low cost representative of your solution, and then you try to test it with your users, right? There are 2 kinds of prototyping. One is low fidelity, the other one is high fidelity. Low fidelity has a lot of things like storyboarding, card sorting, wizards of Oz, but you are not sure the difference between a low fidelity and a high fidelity is low fidelity you are just showing the basic concept without getting into details. High fidelity is more fleshed out. Fidelity is basically the closeness to the real product. The advantages of low fidelity is that it is quick and inexpensive, and you can do multiple iterations of that because it's not very detailed. The disadvantage of low fidelity prototyping is that because it's not detailed, there's a good chance that people might not understand the real sense of the product there. Right? High fidelity is basically you are almost creating a real world product and then showing it to the users. Cons, it takes a lot of time to develop and very less time to iterate or change those things. And on the pro thing, it gives much closer real world closeness to the thing. Right, so once you have the prototype ready, the 5th stage of design thinking is that you test it with the real users. Right, so when you are prototyping, ideating, and empathizing, you would be in the mindset that you really know the users and you are doing things. But when you are testing, you should have a completely 360 degree opposite 180-degree opposite point of view, that you know nothing about the users, and whatever has been done could fail, right? You become a devil's advocate when you test, right? Wizard of Oz prototyping and testing is basically you fake the functionalities that you're saying. You're not putting everything there. You're just saying that. Let's assume that you come here and then you do these things and do this thing, do this thing, right? You are simulating a path for the user rather than actually building a thing, and you are making a lot of decisions on part of your users. And then when the user comes and tests it and tells you, no, this was not the decision I would make, then you would kind of recalibrate your designs. Make sense? The another one uh, for this is for people to organize their work and all, and you figure out what's the sequence of step they would have taken, right? When you are you don't correct them on anything which don't correct them on anything which they might do wrong, because you're not testing the user but you are testing your product, right? Show them, don't give them a lot of instruction on how to use it, right? So kind of understand that you are asking someone to use it, and you are not going to help them, so that you understand what they would have done in absence of you. Clear? Sure. Yeah, I think we are at the close of the things. So once you get the feedback from your testing, you put them into four places, four quadrants. One is the constructive criticism, where someone says that this is not what I was expecting from the product, and it would be nice if you had something new. The second one would be their preferences, what did they like and found was interesting. Third could be the questions raised, that you had certain assumptions and then you realize that people don't need it. The fourth quadrant is if you came across any new idea while doing the usability testing or the user testing. So these four would be the quadrants you need to do that. Yes. Kiran sir, I'm done with my presentation. I would like to open the floor for questions, or any of you if you want to kind of add to anything which I have said earlier.
Yes, thank you, sir. So the floor is open for the questions. So anyone can just pitch in your question either in the chat section.
Yeah, and if you have any questions on design thinking as general or as a career, or how do you apply it to businesses and everything, please feel free to ask those questions. They might not be very much specific to the slides I had today, but anything in general you people want to ask, I think you can type in the question, or you can unmute yourself. Unmuting might lead to a lot of other issues. Just type in your question in the chat box, and I'll pick it from there.
Thanks, Vigneshwar, for your wonderful presentation on design thinking.
Thank
Hello.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. I request the students as well as the faculty members to raise if they have any questions. Well, I believe there are no much questions on this, Vigneshwar. If you like to add anything apart from the presentation, Vigneshwar, you can take a minute or two.
Sure, sure, guys. Feel free to kind of ask questions even after I have finished. But primarily, the engineering science is a very powerful thing, right? So you people have the uh, capabilities and opportunity to reimagine the world and build the things which haven't been built earlier. And in that endeavor, I think whatever stream you choose or whatever profession you get into, use design thinking as a frame of reference for you to question every decision you are making as an engineer or a would say a technician, a technologist, right? Use design thinking as a framework. What I have covered today is very, would say, initial things. Do search on websites. Do go to the Udemy and all those things and equip yourself about design thinking, because as a analytical person, most of the times your mind would be biased towards jumping through conclusions. So design thinking would give you a very well needed balance to take decisions for that. Right? Cool. I think I'm good, Kiran sir.
Okay, thanks, Vigneshwar. It was indeed wonderful to have you on this webinar, and I thank you for sparing your time in spite of your busy schedule. Hope you have made a lot of issues regarding design thinking. I think we had minor issues with network connectivity, but this will pass on. Since we have this recorded session, it would be always available for the students also to access at any point of time on based on interest. Hope the team would be eager to share the info across to others. And Since there are no queries, I thank one and all. I thank Mr. Vigneshwar for coming over here. I thank the management of PESC, the principal, the president of IIC, and all the coordinators who have made this particular event to be a successful one. I thank one and all. Thank you all. If you have any queries, you can always feel free to write us a mail. We will be eager to share it with Vigneshwar, and we can look forward for positive collaboration in coming days. Thank you,
Sure,
one and all.
sure, sir. Thank you so much. Wish you all a great future. Please ask questions via Dr. Kiran Kumar and even at later stages, and I will be happy to respond to your emails. Thank you, guys.
Okay. So we will be concluding for the day. Thank you, one and all.